Welcome to yet another episode of Band Stripped. In tonight's episode, we have a very special surprise for you. It's Justin Swart from the dynamic duo called the Amblers. Now, we've been looking forward to having them for a few weeks. They have a very distinct and unique energy, which we are hoping to share with you tonight on Hot 919. Mr. Justin Swart, welcome to the Band Strip studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, the first thing I have to say, that is an incredibly impressive beard, man.
Thank you. It's taken a lot of patience.
How much of time? We're doing 2-3 years here?
Maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Although I haven't really been counting, but I have cut it quite a bit shorter before.
Yeah.
So this isn't like terminal beard.
Now, you must have, obviously, it's a very impressive body of work, if I may say.
Thank you.
You must have some sort of beard oil or some sort of treatment to keep it in that
Condition.
texture and condition, yeah.
I've used a few things, but yeah, I do use a beard oil at the moment. I think it's a beard oil called Earth Beard. I don't really.
And I at one point did have quite a decent beard.
Yeah.
And the one thing I noticed, as the beard got longer, I got more advice from people on how to treat my beard.
That's true. And lots of questions. I often get stopped by absolutely random people asking me for photos.
So people stop you to ask for a picture.
But because of the beard, not because of the music.
Do you find that if you walk across a road, like you can stop traffic? Everyone's like, oh, wow, that's an impressive beard, man.
I do, but I think that's my looks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the bro code between men, you'll always find, men are not always complimentary to other men about many things, but beards are one of the things that people are generally very complimentary on.
Absolutely. I've even had women come up to me and ask me what advice they can give me for their husband's beard.
Right.
So, yeah, and the best advice is don't cut it.
So it is indeed a powered tool.
Sure.
Now, thank you for joining us in studio. You normally travel together with Jason.
Yes.
Jason Hinch. And you guys form the dynamic duo of the Amblers. Now, I've listened to your music at large.
Yeah.
And I can say safely that you sound nothing like I've heard recently in South African music. So I'm very curious as to where the band started and how this Amblers project or duo was shaped from the start.
Sure. Well, it's been quite a simple process for us. It's not one that we put too much thought into. Jason and I know...
Sort of ambled along into it.
Yes, and that's exactly it. That's really where the name of the Amblers comes from.
Oh, wow, okay, that was a lucky guess.
Absolutely, just kind of doing your thing and living your life and extracting the most out of every moment. But, Jason and I, we've both been in the music industry for quite some time before the Amblers. At the end of the day, we were touching bases. We just got to know each other.
Right.
And when we started out, we didn't have too much expectation. We didn't go out saying we wanted to achieve anything specifically. We just wanted to make music that we both understood.
Yeah.
And that was just natural. It wasn't too complicated and something that we could do, if that makes sense. Because I think
something tangible.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we didn't need to add too much. We didn't need to get a bassist or anything else. We could just get together, just the two of us, and what that produced was what it was. And
build your rhythm, build your melody, build a sound.
Absolutely. And, we get asked a lot of times, I get asked a lot of times, how difficult is it to kind of fit this minimalistic thing in? Because it is sometimes tough, but for us it hasn't been difficult because we haven't pursued anything that doesn't work with just the two of us. It's very easy to, and very quickly whether it's going to absolutely you scrap it, you move on. So luckily we've kind of been fortunate enough to have the music that we've recorded so far be the kind of stuff that works. But it's really that, we wanted to get together, we wanted to make the music that we enjoyed and something that was simple, and we've been lucky enough to have it be something exciting.
Now, in terms of musical shapes, obviously you're a duo, there's drums, guitars, vocals, right? Now, people could, obviously, there's a few quick examples that people will generally try and pigeonhole you in. However, your music, when I listen to it, it's very hard to pigeonhole it because there were quite a variety of influences there. Now, I'm very curious in that regard, what sort of music did each of you listen to? And you are here today, so you particularly, that played a part in maybe shaping your style of music.
Sure. Obviously, there's definitely a very, very strong blues rock element in that, but not in terms of like old school classic blues, like, John Lee Hooker, Howling Wolf,
more
those guys,
blues,
absolutely, things like, a big influence for me has been Jack White.
Right.
the Black Keys in a way.
I like the Black Keys very much.
Sure,
that sound
and as far as my personal musical taste goes, I don't have I've got a very, very broad musical taste. So I really enjoy classical music.
Yeah.
I really enjoy jazz. I enjoy a lot of different kinds of folk music. I like a lot of older music, like before the like digital generation as well.
Well, everything you just said
that
now,
approach.
I can safely say that I pick it up in your music, especially the folk influence, because I think the melodic influence in terms of the songs is coming from that folk.
Absolutely,
that folk
and the
element.
storytelling element as well, in terms
right.
of just that kind of swing to it. And at the end of the day, you know, what's nice about that for us, and where the folk element or influence, it's easy to tone it down. It's easy for me to play the songs.
Yeah.
They sound completely different because there's no drummer and no Jason, but it's still there in like a singer-songwriter kind of sense. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the interesting part of this whole Bandstrip project that we've been doing over the last 20-odd weeks, is that we are getting to your songs as close to as they were written as possible.
Sure.
Which is very authentic. It's very unique.
Absolutely.
It's an insight into the songwriter's mind. What were you thinking? And then when people listen to your EP, etc., they will hear the polished sound, right?
Sure.
Of that thing. Now, your first song that you've decided to play for us is a track called "I Wrote You a Letter."
Yes, sir.
Is this a true story or is this a fictional story?
It is a fictional story. It's a personal story. I don't often like to tell people what the songs are about.
Sure.
Just because I prefer for them to grab their own meaning out
Fair
of
enough. I mean, as a songwriter, I agree with that.
But I mean, I'm happy to divulge it from. There are opportunities where it is relevant, and situations where it is relevant. But for me, I struggled a lot in my younger life with heroin addiction, and I Wrote You a Letter is really a letter to. It's almost personifying heroin addiction as a woman that had made a lot of promises that were a lie. So, and this is the first time in any interview I've given that much in-depth in a song.
Thank you for sharing with that. I mean,
you're welcome.
It's a very vulnerable space.
Sure.
And thank you for sharing that,
you're
because that metaphor, and this is the genius of songwriting and the beauty of songwriting, is that you can disguise something incredibly painful and tough and traumatic in this metaphor, and people will draw their meaning from it.
Sure, absolutely.
As they will, but you know what it means to you.
And it all depends on where, their moment of struggle or their moment of pain is. It relates to that,
Do you find the song, when you perform it now, do you feel a form of catharsis when you...
In a way, absolutely. I mean, that part of my life is so far behind me now. But it was still instrumental into how I kind of grew up and became an adult, so to speak. Although I did become an adult quite late in life.
We eventually do. By force of will.
It is nice to be able to sing that song outside of that cage. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to listening to the stripped down version of I Wrote You a Letter. This is Justin Swart from the Amblers with his first track on Bandstripped. It's called I Wrote You a Letter.
And I wrote you a letter to tell you how I feel. And I wrote to tell you of my love. I wrote to make you real. And I ran to preacher to tell love what you done, but I found him dead behind his threats. Woman, what have you done? cold in my bed. You made me promise. You said that you'd be true, and I held you to your devilish rules. You'll get what's coming you.
Welcome back to Band Stripped. I have Justin Swart with me in studio tonight, and we're having some fun talking music, playing some music, and really taking a deep dive into what are the Amblers. Is that correct? What are? Well, it is now. Justin, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, you touched on something quite interesting earlier. Because you are a duo, it comes with inherent challenges, especially when you are writing a song. Then you've got to take that song into studio.
Sure.
And you put a lot of production into it, and you do what you need to do. But then you've got to translate that into live performance. Now, from what you've said, I can see that you guys have given that quite a bit of thought, because what you said at the start was that everything you're doing, you want to be able to execute.
Sure.
To its nth degree. Give me an idea what your process in studio has been like so far.
Well, everything that the Amblers has recorded up until now, including the EP that the first single is releasing on Friday.
Yeah.
And we'll hopefully have it out in the first bit of 2020.
This is your second EP, third EP, right?
Third. Well, we released the first EP in 2017, the full
Yeah.
album in 2018, and now we're starting just releasing the first singles of the next, hopefully, album.
Yeah.
But at the very least, an EP. Everything we do in the recording process is single takes.
Right.
We've not released one song that has been comped or chopped up and pasted together
Wow.
at all. And that doesn't mean that the vocal, the guitar, the drums, everything is done simultaneously like a live studio album, but the drum take is one single take.
Right.
The
So you're trying to
guitar
get it as
take is
organic as possible.
and also, it was important to us from the beginning to capture a moment in time that's unbroken, even though they're different moments when
Sorry,
it comes
Justin,
to...
say that again. A moment in time that is unbroken.
So basically...
That's a beautiful way to phrase that.
Sure. So it would then reflect who we were, not just as people, but also as musicians. Because if it's one take, that's the best you can offer in that moment.
Yeah.
And you know, we want what we do to be as vulnerable and also authentic as possible.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just for us, and it's worked out.
I can tell you, I picked it up in your music because the music there's a rootedness, there's a rawness to it, but it's authentic, and that's why I said you guys sound like nobody else, because a lot of the music that we're listening to, and listen, I mean, production in music around the world has increased several levels right over the years, but there's something that you guys are doing that gives it a very authentic, raw sound, which is lovely to hear, especially for musicians.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really good. You can sort of get the sense of its organic feel, whereas a lot of stuff that you're playing up against is heavily produced stuff, and a lot of those sounds can't be replicated live.
Yeah, I mean,
Makes sense.
Look, a lot of people are making great music, and you know, the digital age of music has certainly, as you're saying, it's become very polished, and I mean, the quality of audio that's coming out today is absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, and the tools, beautiful tools. Yeah.
If you go and listen to, like, I heard it from the grapevine.
Yeah.
I'm Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, I still have it in my car.
There's
by the
also
way.
just
What's going on? The
something
entire
there
album is
that
there.
we are unable. We've lost that element of it, and I mean,
and it's R&B, but all the instruments are live there.
absolutely.
Bass,
I mean, if
drums.
you think of that, I mean, the whole drum kit is one microphone.
Yeah.
And you know, just the level of care that goes into what goes into that recording. Forget the mixing process. everything is so well thought out and so beautifully artistically created. And that's something that intrigues me. It's something that I understand. It's something that I'd like to get better at, being able to do that. And same with everything. Practice makes perfect.
Absolutely.
The more that you do it, the better you get at it.
And obviously that translates into the buzz of live performance.
Sure.
Which I'm sure for you guys, with the energy and the type of songs that you're writing, you guys must absolutely thrive on that.
We love playing live. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a live kind of sound.
Yeah.
And that's great because we aren't too far off when we hit a live show.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to perform a song identically the same every single time, but I do think that there's a lot of beauty in that as well, in the fact that it's what it is in that moment.
Little inflections, etc. here and there, depending on the audience, depending on sometimes you want a bit of extra solo. You look back at the drummer and you say, right.
And that's easy because there's just two of us. You know what I mean? And Jason's just so solid. He just nods and goes,
keeps going, you're ripping it to shreds there. Where's your music being received, in your opinion? Where is it best been received at the moment? Say in South Africa as an example.
I definitely think here in Joburg, and definitely Bloemfontein has been, crazily enough, Bloemfontein has been huge.
Too, I mean, many people surprised, a very progressive town.
Absolutely. So. I mean, we, I want to say that we were surprised, but we aren't really, because that sounds like, we think Bloem is like a,
it's a big student town. I mean,
it is a big student town, and we've had 2 number 1 campus number ones on Koffsie FM.
Nice.
So that's been great. I mean, I suppose a reward in itself is just the fact that people are enjoying it, because that's what it's made for.
So in terms of energy and crowd, where have you found, which are the gigs that you've enjoyed the most playing live and to that particular audience? Where have those gigs been?
I think our 2 favorite gigs of this year, definitely right at the top, was a show that we played with Raygun Royale and Shadow Club for Uncle Mother's. That was incredible. Just the whole setup of that is so nicely done. And then another standout would have been the Boutique Farm Festival, which was like a small intimate festival that happened at the Tweefontein Melkerij. And that was pretty cool. So those are definitely the 2 stands out, given that we aren't doing too many shows yet, if you know what I mean. So I'm scheduling with Jason and
you've got a more discerning schedule, so to speak.
Absolutely. We a forced discernment within the
I like that.
schedule.
That's not too different to the Eskimo. I mean, I rock up. I'm like the lesser spotted leopard. I play like 4 or 5 gigs a year.
Yeah.
And normally I pop up by surprise somewhere to play. So, and I love playing live, but I love playing live because I don't have to play all the time.
Absolutely.
That's where my joy
I'm
comes
very
from.
grateful for that as well,
And something you never get tired of, do you?
No, not at all.
Speaking of which, it's the title of your next single.
That it is.
You like what I did there?
Yes, that was clever.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So Tired is a song. When did you guys write this one?
It was written around. Tired's from the first EP. It wasn't lying around for too long.
Yeah.
Tired is about a relationship, an actual relationship.
Oh, nice. True stories.
And just as relationships can be tough, and the good ones are the tough ones. Working through things, figuring out stuff. So just a kind of a memoir.
Don't you love how the swath of emotional energy, whether negative or positive, innately contributes to songwriting? I mean, you could have a relationship, you break up, 3 months later something pops in your head and you go, wow, I really need to get this out of my system.
Absolutely. Our emotions and our struggles definitely make for the best songs.
Yeah. So this is something that you wrote a while back and now is obviously translated. And would you call this a classic love song, or is it a unconventional sort of story of love?
I would say it's less conventional. I say it's more of a love rant.
A love rant.
Yeah, than anything else.
I know the audience at home now.
It's not a begging and pleading.
Are clapping their hands with glee to know what a love rant is.
Yeah. I think it's just from the framework of being a frustrated person in a relationship and wanting it to be better.
We've all been there.
Absolutely.
And I find these songs, now that you know what the song is about and the audience knows what the song is about, for those of you out there and you want to get a sense of perspective on if you are in a relationship like this is Justin Swart from the Amblers with his next track on Bandstripped. It's called Tired.
by your sweet embrace. I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of being like this. I'm tired of sleeping less. I'm tired of this big mess. Sometimes I feel miles away. Times follow every day. I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm tired of being like this. I'm tired of sleeping less. I'm tired of this big mess.
Welcome back to the Band Strip Studio. I'm in studio tonight with Justin Swart from the Amblers, and we're sharing good times, bad times, and everything else, and how it contributes to songwriting. Justin, welcome back, man.
Thank you.
And thank you. Look, you've been quite open in terms of how you guys put all this together, and we also have time in the studio to really unpack this. In terms of your songwriting process, when you first started writing music, how long ago was that?
Long. I've been writing, I think it started for me with poetry and just writing short things.
Do you remember your first poem?
I don't. I've written so many.
So you don't remember how bad it was, or how bad your first song was?
It was probably pretty bad.
Yeah, because my first songs were terrible.
Yeah. I think the more you write, the better you get.
Yeah.
And I think,
good advice for songwriters.
Yeah, I don't think that this is an advice section, but that if I was going to give anyone advice, I would say that. I'd say, you know what, get the bad stuff, because everyone's
get it out of your system.
It out first so that the good stuff can come out. And I think that, again, practice makes perfect, and the more that you write, the better that you get. But I mean, I've been writing songs for a long time, and I've gotten better at that, and I've gotten better at articulating them the way that it makes sense to me creatively. I also think that as you get better at doing anything, you are able to simplify things. And that's definitely...
I agree,
Yeah, I think that,
It's a weird process, because in songwriting, sometimes you think, or in music, or in anything, that I can become more complex, but you start to understand the beauty and simplicity.
Absolutely.
Like
for me, how can
it.
I convey this in the least amount of words, or in the least amount of music?
Chord changes.
Absolutely. Exactly. So it's definitely been a similar process for me.
Because obviously when you first started writing, I don't think any songwriter has any particular message that they want to get out there. But sometimes thematically, as a human being, as you evolve, you start to write thematically, subconsciously. And there's now you've got an image, and the band has an image, and there's a certain vibe in your songs that I can pick up. Is there any particular message, whether conscious or subconscious, that you think you're trying to send out to the universe, or to people who listen to your music?
This is going to sound so crazy for a rock
band, but
man. Yeah, I think for me, if there is a theme, it's about personal responsibility.
Right.
It's not the kind of thing that most musicians
Yeah.
put out there, but for me it really is, because that's been a central part of my story in my life,
Yeah.
is being able to take responsibility for myself
Yeah.
and not blame everyone else and everything else, even if they are to blame. Sometimes other people are to blame.
Yeah.
But the reality is, blaming someone else never helps you,
Yeah,
and
it
it doesn't
does.
help you take
It doesn't help your
responsibility.
journey, actually.
So that really, my mindset with things is definitely like that. So, I want to take personal responsibility for things. I want to take personal responsibility for growing myself and growing my own life.
Yeah.
And I think the songs, although maybe not actually about taking personal responsibility, a lot of the songs are my way of
Yes.
taking personal responsibility
absolutely, I
or
get that,
expressing that. Yeah.
And you'll find that over time that might also evolve and shape into different things.
Absolutely.
As a human being, as you change and
As
your
I
needs
grow,
change,
it
right?
becomes something else. Absolutely.
I was just the reason I asked you that question is in this past week I've been listening to a lot of Jason Mraz,
Yeah.
whom I love. He's an incredible artist
And songwriter, amazing.
and a fantastic songwriter. And his early songs were, they were unbelievable in terms of its musical timing, intonation, syntax, just lyrically how it's crafted. And I found that now, as he's evolving as a musician, his songs are actually becoming simpler. They're really about two main topics. It's really about love and hope.
Yeah.
And I think he unashamedly just spreads as much love and hope as possible.
That's what's important to him right
and that's
now.
his theme
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
You see, so
And I totally get that. And I mean, it's beautiful that I think there's a deep beauty in not having to polish things for people's pleasure.
yeah,
One thing that always stuck with me, I watched an interview with David Bowie,
Yeah.
where he said that the worst thing you can ever do as an artist of any kind, not
Yeah.
just is to play to the crowd. Never play to the gallery. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really hard.
you'll never always be satisfied.
Sure, and that's something that's hard to do,
Yeah.
But I think when you're doing it for yourself and all that fluff, as you mature, starts to become unimportant, you are left with something way more simple,
Yeah.
but way more powerful.
Yeah, I think so. But also, the thing is, listen, in South Africa particularly, it's a good lesson to learn because there are times where you guys will play at a festival where there's a packed audience, and sometimes you're playing where three guys are actually listening to your music.
Absolutely.
So
And that happens a lot.
if you're an SA musician, you've lived that life. You know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of music and your ambitions as a band, you're obviously recording, and there's a consistency in terms of what you're creating and releasing. What do you guys hope to achieve in the world of music, starting with South Africa and maybe internationally? Do you have any hopes for that?
You know what? We don't. And I know
Yeah.
that sounds cliched maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've gone that far. I think right now we really are just enjoying what we're doing, and we're also doing what we can.
Yeah.
So instead of setting ourselves up for some kind of failure
Yeah.
personally, of like some expectation or that we'll be successful when we are touring internationally, or we'll finally feel like we're there when, you know what I mean, we're
Yeah.
having 100,000 local streams a week, whatever the case may be. Everyone determines success differently.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's still for us just having the opportunity to do what we can when we can do it. And right now, the majority of that opportunity has been in recording and releasing music, which is why we've been fairly consistent in doing that.
Yeah.
So we're definitely gonna stay with that MO at the moment. And then obviously broadly, the more people that listen to our music, the more people we can reach, the more people,
Yeah.
that find out what we're doing, that's great for us. And that's enough for us.
Well, I'll say this. My personal view is that your music is the type of music that genuinely, if heard by the right audience, can draw a degree of critical acclaim.
Sure.
Now, I say that also because I read some of the international reviews outside of the country
Yeah.
on people listening to your music, and, obviously quite amazed by the
Yeah,
sound
we were
that you're
super
creating.
surprised. I mean, it was great. It felt really good.
Yeah, and it's fantastic
Yeah.
to be acknowledged beyond our borders
Yeah,
by people who have no real reason to have to listen to you except that you make good music.
absolutely. It's a
Um,
good feeling.
And it gives you a lot of confidence as an artist, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But what I've experienced.
Don't get carried away, you're saying.
Well, no. What I've experienced is that, releasing The Dustling Man, it was so free. We didn't think anything was going to come of it.
That's what it's called, The Dustling Man.
The first EP was called The Dustling Man.
I spent some time trying to unravel that title. What is Dustling?
Okay, so it was called Dustling. I'm sharing more about our inner workings on this show than I have in any other interview. The Dustling Man really came out about the fact that we are incredibly fragile. So there is no word called the dustling. The dustling comes from dust. There is no word called the dust.
I genuinely have
but
a
the
fair
same way
command
that
of
you
English.
say a gosling or an inkling or whatever.
You created a word.
Absolutely. and that word was just about fragility. It really was. And that's where the Dustling Man came
fragility.
from. And, but with the Dustling Man, we had no expectations.
Yeah.
And people received it so well, and that was really, really awesome. Then when we started recording Radio Old Mo, and it started to get post-production ready to go out, I started to get very insecure because of the first reaction. Absolutely. Is it going to measure up? Is this where we tank?
Well, that's a very important thing you mentioned there, because I think any artist who is successful, any artist or any actor or actress, that is, when you have a degree of success, you always, the tendency is to become afraid of meeting that expectation.
Sure.
But what you're saying is psychologically what you guys have done is lowered your expectation in general so that you can be free.
Absolutely.
And you're not playing to expectations.
Because that's what's important to us. It makes us... I can't speak for other bands, but definitely for the Amblers, it makes us better at what we do in the moment.
I agree.
We're not so phased about what it is. I mean, even, Radio Old Mo got a lot of international critical acclaim, which was really, really awesome. But in hindsight, Radio Old Mo would have done so differently, and that's the problem with anything artistic.
Yeah.
And so we set ourselves very specific deadlines, and when we hit that deadline, what we've got is what we've got. Because if we don't do that, you will just change, and you never end up with a product. Yeah. So with the new single that's being released on Friday, it's called The Birds and the Bees,
right.
And the first time I listened to it was actually in an interview, because once it came back from mastering, I put it aside. And I didn't go back to it because I was afraid. Because what it was going to go out. It was going to go out to the world. All of that stuff had been set up. I'd rather let it be than torment myself about what it's not.
Absolutely.
But I've been very happy with what I've heard so far. So it's been great.
Listen, it's a good way to record and process, because, I mean, you're right. You could end up changing things.
It's a never-ending cycle.
Right. Yeah. It's I think one of the talents of an artist to know when you've done the right thing. And just go with your instinct and say, right, it's done. It is what it is. And it's about capturing that moment.
And put yourself out there. You see, at the end of the day, if you're not prepared to risk, if you can't emotionally and psychologically put yourself out there for people to either love or hate, well, you'll never put anything out there.
Absolutely. So your next track is called Sometimes. It's your third track on the band Strip Studio. What is Sometimes? What's the essence of the song? I was going to ask you what it's about.
It's also locked in a relationship, just a different aspect or a different perspective of a relationship. On the Dustling Man, because that song is also from the Dustling Man. One of the two songs that were specifically about an actual romantic relationship, or not a platonic relationship, and it's just very much the same thing. I mean, it's just expressing how I felt in that moment about that relationship, and it's as simple as that. Nothing deeper.
The two people in question for these last two songs, they've heard the song, and do they know it's about them? Probably not.
They've heard the song.
But they don't know it's about them.
I don't know. We've never had that discussion. Person is very much still a part of my life.
I see.
At the end of the day, toughness in relationships don't mean relationships have to end.
But as a songwriter, you must get that question quite a bit. Somebody listens to a song like this and goes, well, okay, that's interesting. And then, Justin, who is this about?
Yeah, they do. My answer usually to that question is we don't tell people what our songs are about.
Yeah.
You guys have literally been the first.
Michael,
in a very polite way, obviously. I don't sit there and say, sorry, I'm important, you're not, and I'm not going to tell you what the song's about. It's more a case of we'd like you to get your own meaning from it.
Well, I'm going to give you a little trick. Michael Stipe, whenever they played Losing My Religion, which is one of 2 songs R.E.M. played at every gig they did since they released the song.
Yeah.
Man on the Moon was the other one. But whenever he announced Losing My Religion, he always said, this next song is about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was talking to everyone.
Sure.
And I thought it was fantastic.
It is fantastic. And it's clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just remember that for sometimes. This is Justin Swart with his third and final track, The Amblers, with Sometimes.
Just a stone's throw. It's time to let go. Gave your whole heart. Now it's broke. I left you bleeding. Your body reeling. So deceiving. Pound of stone. Don't you wait for me, 'cause I would rather see you leaving. Don't you pray for me, 'cause I be long gone. Don't you wait for me, 'cause I would rather see you leaving. Don't you pray for me, 'cause I be long gone. Sometimes I wonder why we're not, and why we've never been before. Sometimes I wonder why we're not, and why we've never been before. Sometimes I wonder why we're not, and why we've never been before. Sometimes I wonder why we're not, and why we've never been before.
Welcome back to Band Stripped. That was Justin Swart on behalf and part of the duo, half of the duo of the Amblers, playing his third and final track called Sometimes right here on the Band Stripped studio. Justin, thank you for sharing your music with us and sharing your story with us. I'm not completely done with you, because in talking to you, I became very curious. Have you released physical copies of all these, or are they all in digital only?
The most of our music is on digital. Obviously, we lean more to vinyl. But
I was about to say, because you're giving off a strong vinyl vibe.
Yeah, we lean more to vinyl.
Yeah.
But vinyl, you've got to play your cards right with vinyl, because
in terms of cost of manufacture, etc.
Look, at the end of the day, in the modern music industry, you've got to be a business. You've got to be business people as well.
Yeah, sure.
And at the end of the day, that is part of our MO. But I mean, even though vinyl sales have creeped and grown exponentially over the last couple of years, if you look at those numbers and you look at that data, it's actually really old bands. No, very few new
it's
bands.
It's back catalogue stuff that people are stocking up on, isn't it?
People are going back to the
Pink
60s
Floyd,
and
Dark Side of the
100%.
Moon.
Those are the vinyls that are making up the bulk of this vinyl explosion. So, it's definitely our format and our vibe, because we're a lot more analog. We will release some CDs and stuff like that, if we feel the demand is high. But far fewer people are collecting CDs anymore.
And
they're collecting
gigs?
vinyl. Well, at our live gigs, we don't really have too much. We might have a few vinyl. A lot of times we have skateboards and things like that, because we've had some Amblers skateboards and stuff on our merch list.
I can see the T-shirt, I am a dustling man.
Absolutely.
That's what should
we're
be
going
it.
to do one. We're going to do one.
Now, where can people find your music digitally, though?
Everywhere, on every major digital platform.
So
and
Apple,
even the ones that are more obscure, like you know,
like iTunes,
Tidal, stuff that
Kidding,
we don't really, but definitely the big ones: Deezer, Spotify, Apple Music,
Google Music,
Google Music, Pandora.
Lovely.
The majority of them.
And social media wise, now this is very important for our audience because we have a very large social media engagement and following on this station. What are your social media handles for Facebook and Instagram, etc.?
Our social media handles, our Instagram handle is __. So like almost like two eyes and a mouth.
Right.
Amblers.
Right.
It was the only thing that we could actually get that had
you
the
kept it as
Amblers in
simple
it.
as you could, I see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, it's / We Are the Amblers. So, and that's really where the majority of our online presence is. We don't have a website. We're all on socials.
Well, we're going to encourage the audience to go out and share your music, listen to your music, buy your music, and enjoy your music. That's the most important
Mostly
thing.
enjoy it.
Justin, thank you so much. I wish you guys all the best. I think you're a cool band. I think you're unique and original and refreshing for South African music right now.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been an honor to be here.
All the best, man.
Hot 91.9.
Playing the best old school and R&B.